Carol's 16-year-old daughter Emma left school at 3:15 p.m. like every other day, but never made it to her part-time job 3 blocks away. Security cameras caught her walking toward the parking lot, then nothing. For 8 months, there's been no trace, no leads, no answers. But what the police investigation revealed about Emma's final hours and why they stopped searching in the places Carol begged them to look shows how missing child cases can go cold, while families are still screaming for help. See, we think missing children cases get immediate, intensive police response with every resource available until the child is found. But what I learned from Carol's story is that missing person investigations can become routine paperwork, that some families get justice while others get excuses, and that parents often have to become their own detectives when the system fails them. Carol thought calling 911 would bring an army of searchers to find Emma. Instead, she discovered that after the first crucial 48 hours, her missing daughter became just another case file in an overloaded system that had already moved on to newer emergencies. Let me tell you about Carol Jensen from Sacramento. She's 49 years old, works as a dental hygienist, divorced, but maintains a close relationship with Emma's father, Mike, for co-parenting. For 16 years, Carol had built her life around being Emma's mother, and Emma was everything a parent could hope for. Emma was a junior at Lincoln High School, maintained a 3.7 GPA, played varsity volleyball, and worked part-time at a local coffee shop to save money for college. She was responsible, communicative, and had never given Carol reason to worry about her safety or choices. Emma was one of those kids who made parenting look easy, Carol tells me. She followed rules, checked in regularly, chose good friends, and had clear goals for her future. I never worried about her walking those 3 blocks from school to work because she'd done it hundreds of times. Emma's daily routine was predictable and safe. School ended at 3:15 p.m. She'd walk to Java Junction coffee shop by 3:30 p.m., work until 8 p.m., then either catch a ride home with a coworker or call Carol for pickup. The route was through a busy commercial district with multiple businesses, security cameras, and regular foot traffic. Emma texted me every day when she left school and when she arrived at work, Carol explains. It was our system. She'd send heading to work at 3:15 and at work by 3:30. I never had to worry because Emma was so consistent. On March 15th, Carol received Emma's usual heading to work text at 3:17 p.m. She never received the at work text that should have arrived by 3:35 p.m. When 4 p.m. passed without hearing from Emma, Carol called Java Junction. Emma's manager said she hadn't shown up for her shift, which was completely unlike her. Carol called Emma's phone repeatedly. It went straight to voicemail. Carol called 911 at 4:30 p.m., exactly 1 hour and 15 minutes after Emma's last text. The operator explained that teenagers weren't considered missing until 24 hours had passed, but agreed to send an officer to take a report. The officer treated it like Emma had probably gone somewhere with friends and forgotten to call, Carol recalls. He asked if we'd been fighting, if Emma had a boyfriend, if she'd ever run away before. I kept saying this wasn't like Emma, but he seemed convinced she'd come home on her own. Carol spent that first night driving Emma's usual routes, calling her friends, checking social media, and visiting places Emma might go. Mike joined the search, and they covered every location they could think of until dawn. When Emma hadn't returned by the next evening, police officially opened a missing person investigation. Officers interviewed Emma's friends, teachers, and co-workers, reviewed security footage from the school, and traced her phone's last location. The security cameras showed Emma leaving school at 3:15, walking toward the parking lot like always, Carol says. But then the cameras lose her in a blind spot near the street. Her phone pinged a cell tower 6 blocks away at 3:22 p.m., then went dark. For the first week, police seemed actively engaged. They organized search parties, distributed flyers, and followed up on tips. Carol felt hopeful that the investigation was thorough and that Emma would be found quickly. But after 2 weeks with no leads, Carol noticed the investigation slowing down. Officers returned fewer phone calls, search parties stopped being organized, and Carol felt like she was becoming a nuisance rather than a priority. 3 months after Emma's disappearance, Carol discovered that police had never searched the abandoned warehouse district where Emma's phone had last pinged. When she asked why, the detective explained that they didn't have resources to search every possible location. I asked how they decided which places to search and which to ignore, Carol says. They said they focus on high-probability areas and credible leads. But Emma's phone ping seemed like a credible lead to me, Carol hired a private investigator with money from her retirement fund. The PI immediately identified gaps in the police investigation: witnesses who hadn't been interviewed, security footage that hadn't been collected, and areas that hadn't been searched despite being along Emma's route. I realized that the police investigation was more about checking boxes than actually finding Emma, Carol explains. They'd done the minimum required procedures, but they hadn't done everything possible. The PI discovered that Emma's case had been deprioritized because there was no evidence of foul play and no suspects. Without signs of struggle or obvious danger, Emma was classified as a voluntary missing person, someone who had chosen to disappear. The detective told me that most teenagers who go missing return home within a week, Carol recalls. He said Emma was probably staying with friends or had run away to find herself, but I knew Emma better than anyone, and this wasn't voluntary. Carol's frustration with the investigation grew as she learned that other missing person cases received more resources, media attention, and investigative priority. She began to understand that not all missing children are treated equally by the system. When Carol called me 6 months after Emma's disappearance, I heard something that broke my heart: the voice of a mother who had been abandoned by the very systems designed to help find missing children. Carol, I told her, you're not just dealing with Emma's disappearance. You're dealing with the failure of institutions that are supposed to protect families like yours. Your frustration with the investigation isn't about being demanding. It's about recognizing that your daughter deserves better. I shared with her something I learned about missing person investigations. Law enforcement agencies have limited resources and make decisions about where to focus their efforts. Unfortunately, those decisions don't always align with what families need or what cases deserve intensive investigation. But I also understood her impossible situation. You're living in a space between hope and despair that's designed to destroy people. Not knowing is torture, but giving up hope feels like abandoning Emma. There's no good way to navigate this kind of uncertainty. I explained to Carol the difference between accepting limitations and accepting failure. You can accept that the police have resource constraints while still demanding that they use available resources effectively. You can accept uncertainty about Emma's fate while still fighting for answers. Carol asked me how she could continue living when every day brought the same questions without answers. I told her, your job isn't to solve the mystery of Emma's disappearance. It's to make sure that everything possible is being done to find her and that other families don't face the same investigative failures you've experienced. Over the next several months, Carol and I worked together on what I call advocacy-based coping, channeling the energy of grief and frustration into productive action that serves both your missing loved one and other families facing similar crises. First, we focused on maximizing the search for Emma. You can't force police to prioritize Emma's case, but you can supplement their investigation with private resources and organize community support that keeps pressure on the system. Carol organized monthly search parties, maintained social media campaigns, and worked with local media to keep Emma's case in public attention. Second, we addressed Carol's need to process uncertainty without giving up hope. You can grieve the Emma you knew while still hoping for the Emma who might return. These aren't contradictory emotions. They're both necessary for surviving this kind of loss. Carol started attending support groups for families of missing persons while also maintaining hope through practical action like updating missing person flyers and following up on potential leads. Third, we channeled her systemic frustrations into advocacy. You can't change what happened to Emma's investigation, but you can work to improve how future missing person cases are handled. Your experience has given you expertise that other families need. 10 months after Emma's disappearance, Carol achieved something she thought was impossible. She found purpose in her pain while maintaining hope for Emma's return. I realized that Emma would want me to help other families, not just grieve for her, Carol explains. I couldn't bring Emma home, but I could work to improve missing person investigations so other families get better support. The breakthrough came when Carol successfully advocated for policy changes in her local police department's missing person procedures. Her efforts led to improved training, better resource allocation, and more comprehensive investigation protocols. Carol's advocacy work included significant accomplishments. Within a year of Emma's disappearance, Carol successfully lobbied for improved missing person investigation protocols. She established a nonprofit organization providing resources to families of missing persons. Carol trained over 200 volunteers volunteers in search and rescue techniques. She helped 12 other families navigate missing person investigations. Carol worked with local media to improve missing person coverage. She organized monthly community searches that involved hundreds of volunteers. Emma's case remains unsolved, but Carol's advocacy has improved outcomes for other missing person cases. The warehouse district that police never searched was eventually investigated by volunteers, though no evidence of Emma was found. What Carol taught me through her missing person nightmare is that families often become their own best advocates when institutional systems fail to provide adequate support. Here's what every family facing a missing loved one needs to know. First, missing person investigations vary dramatically in quality and intensity. Some cases receive immediate, comprehensive response, while others receive minimal attention. Understanding why can help you advocate more effectively. Second, the first 48 hours are critical, but investigations shouldn't stop after 48 hours. If you feel the initial response is inadequate, document your concerns and seek additional resources. Third, private investigators, volunteer search groups, and family advocacy can supplement official investigations when resources are limited. You're not interfering, you're filling gaps. Fourth, media attention can be crucial for missing person cases. Learn how to work with journalists and social media to keep your loved one's case visible. Fifth, support groups for families of missing persons provide both emotional support and practical guidance from people who understand the unique challenges you're facing. Sixth, living with uncertainty requires different coping strategies than processing grief. You need support for the ongoing trauma of not knowing, not just comfort for loss. Seventh, advocacy work can provide purpose and healing while you wait for answers. Helping other families can honor your missing loved one while serving your own need for meaningful action. Eighth, hope and acceptance aren't mutually exclusive. You can hope for your loved one's return while also accepting that you may never have answers. If your family is facing a missing person situation right now, remember what Carol learned. The system's limitations don't define your loved one's worth or your obligation to keep searching. You can demand better while preparing for uncertainty. Carol still doesn't know what happened to Emma, but she's helped ensure that other families receive better investigative support when their loved ones disappear. Emma's case changed how missing person investigations are conducted in Sacramento. The warehouse district was eventually developed into a shopping center, but not before Carol's volunteers conducted the thorough search that police had never completed. No evidence of Emma was found, but Carol knows she did everything possible. Emma would be 17 now. Carol still celebrates her birthday, still updates her missing person profiles, and still hopes for answers. But she's also built a life dedicated to helping other families navigate the nightmare she's still living. That's not just surviving a missing person case. That's transforming tragedy into advocacy. Remember this, your missing loved one deserves every possible effort to find them, and other families deserve to benefit from your experience navigating this crisis. The search for your loved one can become a pathway to helping others. Carol learned what every family of missing persons needs to learn. You can't control whether your loved one is found, but you can control whether your experience helps other families get better support during their darkest hours. When official systems fail families in crisis, those families often become the voices demanding better systems for future families facing similar tragedies.